So ever since my children were young, I have had this life lesson that I've been doing my best, trying my best to really have them understand and have them incorporate in their life. And my daughter is 15 in a month, and my son turns 12 in a couple of months. And my daughter, a lot of the time, she talks about this, and she says, my dad has always talked about this, and it's the fact of that life is unfortunately unfair. And I've really done my best to really get her to understand that life is always going to be unfair. No matter how you look at it, nature is unfair, and life is a part of nature. And I think the faster people understand that life is unfair, the faster they can get on with their life and do the best that they can of their life. And even though realizing that life is unfair doesn't mean that you have to be a prick, doesn't mean that you have to walk on other people or see other people in a certain way. It just has to mean that it is unfair, and you can whine about it, or you actually can do your best to actually live a better life for yourself. And it's also, at least according to me, very important to understand that once you do realize that life is unfair, that you have that as a motivation to do better for yourself, and have that as a vehicle to not complain, because there's always somebody in other situations that has it worse than you. And even if some things can be fair in a certain way, I can guarantee you that if you look at that same situation in another way, it's probably unfair to other people. And once at probably a grown-up age, understood that life was unfair, it unlocked something in me that took me from being some kind of a victim to instead really being the captain of my life. That, okay, this is unfair. Doesn't matter. I'm gonna do my best to get the result that I want for me, people that I love. And that's also maybe one of the reasons to why I, in some ways, don't believe, or I've lived as if racism doesn't exist. And that might sound odd coming from a person who's white as I am, but here where I live in Sweden, and I come from Kosovo, which is a small country, or so-called country, on the Balkans. And in Sweden, I'm the person of color. But even though I'm the person of color here in Sweden, and Albanians, as I am, are known for being so-called bike thieves, even though it's half a joke, but it's half true, I've never seen racism in my life. And that's kind of interesting, I think, because I know so many people who bring the racist card. Every time they have something that doesn't go their way, they say, oh, that person is a racist. I've never seen that myself. Because if somebody hasn't liked me or something hasn't gone my way, I've always thought that, okay, maybe it has to do with how I conduct myself. Maybe it has to do with they have problems in their life. Maybe they are in the middle of a divorce. And that ties back to why life is unfair. Because of course I could go around and say, well, I'm born Albanian. Swedish isn't my first language, and be a victim of that. Instead, I haven't even thought about it. It's not been a possibility in my head. Of course, who knows, maybe throughout the years I've met racists. But I don't believe that. I choose to not believe that. Because if I go around and thinking life is unfair just because I'm a immigrant, then I will have that mentality of a victim. And I am no victim. I've carved out a very nice life for myself. So I truly believe that if you teach yourself and your people around yourself that yes, life is unfair, but it doesn't matter, you still have to do your best, then I truly believe that you will have a better life. And also, as I said in the beginning, I've tried to incorporate this in my children's life and their conscience. And one of the ways that I did that was that in a very early age, when they started to ride a bike, my daughter in the beginning said, "Well, Dad, how come you don't have to have a helmet on your head?" And I was, well, you know what? Life is unfair. At the time, I was probably 35 or something. And I said, I've been riding a bike ever since I was 5 years old, for 30 years. And of course I could fall, but with my life story, with all the bike riding that I've done, I choose to not do this. However, you are 5, 6, 7 years old, and I'm your dad. I have the responsibility for you. So we're not equal. I want you to have a bike helmet. But me, myself, I won't have one because I choose to not have one and I'm a grown-up. The same rules do not apply for a small child that's 6 or 7 or 8 and a grown-up. So that was one way that I tried to incorporate the fact that life is unfair to my children. And they make fun of me today, but I know when I look at my children today that whatever happens to them, they're not victims because they have realized that life is unfair. And whenever they say that life is unfair or, oh, it's unfair in my presence, I always go there and talk about it because I can tell you that there are always other people who have it tougher than they do. It doesn't matter what situation it is, doesn't matter at what time it is, there's always other people that have it tougher. So just realizing that life is unfair is a superpower because it lets you look at the problem, realize it, and go on and try to do the best of it. So yeah, that's something I hope my children will remember the day that I'm gone.